Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michael. I'm going to be your host for this afternoon session. Just myself running with you, the session with you. So do bear with me if you've got any questions when you submit them today. This afternoon, we're looking at the year-end process, and that should take us maybe around about 45 minutes to run through that. So we'll be looking at all aspects of that. So again, keep your questions coming as we're working through. And on the subject of questions, we'll quickly run through a little bit of housekeeping just before we get started. So if you're new to webinars, you don't need a microphone for them. If you've got one and you do enable it as you join, you will find that's muted automatically and you can't unmute yourself. So any questions or comments that you have for me today as I'm working through the year-end webinar, telling you more about it and running the various demonstrations, you'll need to pop them into the questions panel. To access that, you just click the little speech bubble icon. It's on the right-hand side on the toolbar. Give it a click, it'll expand the panel, and then you'll have access to that box in the bottom right-hand corner. So that's where you can start typing any comments or questions you have. Remember to click send, otherwise I won't get them. So if you're thinking, why hasn't Michael reacted to that one yet? Make sure you've clicked send. But as I say, do bear with me here and there. If anyone wants a copy of today's slides, they are available. There's two versions. One is the full colour version of the slides I'm using. The other is what we term the print-friendly version, so like a pure black and white version of them. So most of the colours stripped out. The detailed information, though, if you do want that, obviously we'll provide some information on the handouts just to really give us a little bit of structure to the webinar today. But if you want the detailed sort of step-by-step guides, you will find that available from our help centre, and we'll be running through that a little bit later on. Now, the session, as normal, is being recorded. A link to this afternoon's recording will be included on your follow-up email. You receive that round about an hour after we finish the webinar today. So it'll include a link to today's recording. So if you want a bit of a recap, you'll have that to hand. It'll include a link to our registration page. So if you're new to webinars and you think, oh, they're a good idea, come along for a few more, expand the knowledge, or even just get that bit of reassurance that your understanding of a certain process or option within the software is right, yeah, that's fine. You might learn nothing. You might just go away feeling, yeah, I think I know all of that. Great. You're feeling confident. Great. So do get yourself signed up. They're all free to attend. Our timetable currently runs to the end of February. Some sessions, when you click on them, they'll actually have dates in March as well. We haven't fully advertised the March timetable yet, but some sessions are already scheduled for March. So you're more than welcome to book on those as well. The other link that's included on that email will be a link to our recordings page. So if you've missed any other topics, you don't want to hang around waiting for that topic coming around again on the webinar schedule, then watch the recording. It's a great way to benefit from the webinar service. Right, let's have a look at what we're covering in this afternoon's session then. So we're going to start with a quick poll for you, just ask you a quick question, get you involved a little bit. I'm going to cover some common questions up front as well, so just to almost like nip them in the bud early doors as well. Otherwise, I'll get asked them time and time again in the webinar, so I'll sort of call some of those out up front. We're going to then run through some demonstrations, so we're looking at talking about the tasks involved in preparing for your year end. We'll go through running the year end itself, and just maybe once you run that year end, how can you check it's gone through successfully? So those post year end checks. We'll pick up on the optional tasks just to mention a little bit about those. However, Laura will be taking you through those over the coming months. So if you all want to expand your knowledge even further beyond the year end, you can have a look at maybe sign up for our Clear Audit Trail session, or maybe one of our sessions about deleting records, so clearing out your older information if you no longer need that in your live accounts. Touching on company archives as well today. It forms part of that year-end process, so I'm going to again touch on that. We do have a webinar, I think it's on Monday, company archives, so Monday next week, so that'll be on 2 o'clock normally is the time on a Monday, where I think Laura's going to be taking you through company archives in a bit more detail. So again, get yourself signed up if you are interested, but a few different dates for that session as well, so you can find out more. And then just right at the end, we'll explain more about the additional support, and if there are any outstanding questions, I'll try and pick as many of those up as I can. But as I say, do bear with me. Normally we have a bit of support in the background, but not today, just myself. Right, so let's start with a bit of a poll. So I'm going to pop that on your screen for you in just a second. And it's just a little bit of background on yourself. So the question is, how many times have you personally, now not the business that you work for, how many times have you personally run the year-end and Sage 50 accounts? So if you don't mind, get involved, choose an answer. Remember to click submit. And I'll just let that run through. Just to give me an idea of who's attending today and everyone's level of experience. I'll let you see the results of that in a moment once we close the poll down. Looks like we've got quite a good divide today. So all levels of experience. So I'm sure some of you will just be coming along for a bit of a reminder as to what's involved and what that task looks like. As you only run it once a year, obviously. Others who've never run it, you're coming along to see what it's all about. Hopefully you'll be going away feeling a lot more confident. So I'll just share that with you as well, just so you can see that yourself. So we've got 38% of you have never run a year end before in Sage 50 accounts. So you're the group that I want to be feeling a little bit more confident towards the year end and what's involved in it, and have a better understanding of it. We've got 9% of you having run it once, 16% of you run twice, and a big chunk of you have run it 3 times or more. So quite a bit of experience on the session for you today. Right, let's hide that. Now, I've got a second poll as well. So again, if you don't mind, get involved. Now, obviously, this for yous that haven't run year end before. You can get involved if you think, well, we've got an idea of how long we're going to wait. But for those of you that have run a year end before, how long do you normally wait before you actually run that year end? So you hit the year end date. Let's say, just say that was the end of December. The other common one is the end of March. So how long do you normally wait before? There's no right or wrong answer to this, but how long do you normally wait before you get round to actually running that year-end process? So again, this is just to give me a bit of an idea on everyone's the way that businesses approach this. Normally get a bit of a sliding scale on this one. Right, okay, majority have voted there, so again, I'll close that. I'll share the results with you as well, just so you can see what people have voted for. So we got 22% of you generally run that year end within a month of hitting that year end date, which actually normally for what we get, that's quite high percentage wise based on how many are here today. 41% of you looking at sort of 1 to 2 months, about a quarter of you 3 to 6 months, and then we've got 11% of you generally it's more than 6 months. And that more than 6 months brings me on nicely onto one of our first questions. So thanks for getting involved there, but we'll go back to the slides. So we'll bring up the first one. So first common question, and this might be something if you've never run year end before, you're new to Sage 50 accounts, you might be thinking, oh, do I need to run the year end before we start processing in the new financial year? And the simple answer is no. Continue as normal. Now, I cannot stress this enough. Continue as normal. Complete all of those tasks that you normally would. So entering transactions, deletions, corrections, creating new records, entering invoices, adding new products, services, posting new invoices, updating them into the ledgers, running month ends, bank reconciliations, VAT returns. You continue as normal. Nothing should change. Other than now and again, you get a message saying your date's beyond the end of your financial year, which when you get sick of seeing that message, starts infuriating you too much, you can just tick a box and say, don't show me this again, I'm aware of that. So continue as normal. I can't stress that one enough. I'm sure I'll still get someone asking, well, Do I run the month end? If you do use the month end option in Sage 50 accounts, continue with that as well. Run that as normal. You come back to run the year end as and when you're ready. So it's common to process 6 months plus into the new financial year before you even think about running that year end. So we had 11% of you saying, I go 6 months plus. So we had just over a quarter of you, 3 to 6 months. So the longer you leave it, the more likely you are to have posted everything. If you run it fairly quickly, obviously that's less likely. So things like maybe suppliers getting in touch with you and saying, well, you haven't paid this invoice, and then you think, oh, we haven't paid it because we haven't even entered it. We weren't aware of it. It's just gone missing somewhere along the line. Processing errors. Chances are you'll have spotted those and corrected those the longer you leave it. So there are advantages. Second question. This is a bit more niche, this one. Can I shorten or extend the financial year? So by default, Sage 50 accounts, it runs on based around a 12-month financial year. And commonly, maybe for tax purposes or if you're fairly new businesses, you might be advised to either extend your financial year to bring it in line with maybe a sister company, or if you're part of a group of companies, or maybe it's for tax benefits. So you may be in a position where, for whatever reason, you need to shorten or extend your financial year. Can it be done? Yes. I'm not going to go through that, but there are processes you can follow. Those are documented in our help center. So I've included 2 links there. So just in case, if you are in that position, do refer to the help center. Well-established process for those 2. Slightly different, the 2 processes, depending which one you're completing. But yes, that is possible. Tatiana, you mentioned there, is the year end the same for companies and schools? Processing Sage 50 accounts, no different. It's the same option. Whether you've got different other processes you need to go through, I can't advise you on that. But the processing Sage 50 accounts, what you need to do, it's going to be exactly the same. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to get stuck into some demonstrations. So I've broken it sort of down into 3 key steps. One is preparing for year end, which I'm just going to chat a little bit about that. Maybe run a little demo here and there. We're then going to run through the year end process itself. So what does that look like in Sage? If you've never run it before, it's quite common when we run through that demo, or maybe you contact our support team and say, can you just guide me through that? And the common reaction afterwards is just, why, is that all there is to it? It's a nice simple wizard that you just follow through. And then I just want to pick up on some post year end checks as well. But let's start with talking a little bit about preparing for your year end. Now, it sounds obvious, but the number one thing as part of that preparation is concerned is to complete all your processing for that financial year. So again, the longer you leave it, the more likely you are to have done that. So, if you are leaving it 3 months plus, then chances are, if you hadn't entered a purchase invoice, that supplier would have been chasing you, and you would have spotted that you'd missed an invoice. So a good chance to sort of get that back data, get it entered into your accounts. The other one, check your chart of accounts and resolve any problems. Now, this is something that you can do at any time. Some of you may have been on the chart of accounts webinar. You sat there thinking, oh, I've heard of it, or maybe you haven't heard of it, and you're thinking, what's chart of accounts all about? Why would I need to do that? Get yourself signed up for the chart of accounts webinars that we've got booked in. We've got those coming up fairly soon. But we're going to show you how to check that in just a moment. Run your year-end reports. Now, there's not a definitive list of reports that you need to generate. The common ones that most people generate. Trial balance, profit and loss, balance sheet. Maybe you need debtors, creditors, so you can see who owes you money and who you owe money to as at the year-end date. There might be other reports that you want as well. But again, there's no definitive list, and it will vary between businesses as what what reports you need. And obviously it's going to vary depending on what options within the software you use as well. So some of you will use the stock control element of Sage 50, others won't. So there may be like stock valuation reports to run and things like that. And the other one is check your data and backup. Now, that's something you should be doing regularly. But the reason I mention that is what we don't want you to doing is when you get to run the year end, there is an option to check your data. And I don't want you to get into the year end window, click check data, and it throws out a surprise. We don't want any surprises when we get to that point. So something you should be doing regularly. So let's have a quick look at a couple of those tasks. The first one I want to quickly pick up on is checking your chart of accounts. So back to my screen. Now to check your chart of accounts, really simple. You just go into your nominal codes area. So on the left, nominal codes. Then on your toolbar, you've got a chart of accounts option. And you may have more than one. I've only got the one in this set of data that I'm using today, but we're going to highlight it. We're going to edit it at the top. And then all I'm going to do within this screen is click on the check option at the top. If you're on a really old version, you'll find that check option is down the bottom here. You'll have the buttons there rather than at the top. So we'll click check. Fingers crossed this is what you get. So if nothing else after today's session, go and check your chart of accounts, or even do it now if you've got your software open. It's a really quick one to do. And I want you to get this information, no errors found in this chart. If you've not come across the chart of accounts before, it basically provides the structure for your management reports. So it's used by the profit and loss, the balance sheet. So it helps determine which nominal codes it should pick up, which ones should be merged together, etc., for your year-end balances. So you want to check it because part of that preparation is to actually generate your management reports. So if you've got an error, and I'll just force it with an error in this instance, I'll just change one of my ranges and I'll click check. So when you click check, if you've got problems, you're going to get this warning, incomplete chart of accounts. So you just okay that. And you'll get this prompt where you can preview the errors report. So you just run it, see what those errors are. So this is the most common type of error that you're likely to come across. So we've got nominal code. It'll mention the number. It says not represented in the chart. So if you've been creating nominal codes yourself, you want to make sure that they are included in your chart of accounts so that when you run your management reports, it knows which nominal codes to pick up. If you've got something that's missing, then it's not going to be included in the likes of your profit and loss or your balance sheet because it's not in that chart of accounts. So check your chart of accounts. I'm just going to set my range back to what it was. I'll just click check as well because I made a change there. So yes to the prompt. See if it changes. And then again, what I'm after, or what I hope you get at this stage, is no errors found in this chart of accounts. If you get any other type of error, you will find there's a little help icon, like an information option in the top right hand corner of the window that pops up. Click on it, it'll take you across to our help center. So someone's just mentioned there, can you close the poll results screen? Yeah, we don't have the poll, I don't have the poll results displayed at the minute. Let me just pause the screen and I'll restart it again, just see if that makes any difference, see if it disappears for you. But it's not showing at my end that it's still being shared. Right, let's just close out of that then. So that's a nice, easy one for you to complete. The other one I want to quickly mention, obviously running reports, you've got a number of options for that one. But the one tip I would give you when you're running your management reports is save copies of them. Nice and easy to do. So let's just pick on a trial balance as an example. If we click run, choose when you want to run it up to. Obviously, it's an old set of data that I'm using today. So I'm running up to the end of December 2024. So I'm actually more than 12 months beyond the end of that financial year. I can still process quite happily. So when you run your reports, obviously, you're probably going to print them. But remember, you can save copies of them. So you would just click export at the top, or when you first run it, choose the option to send it to file. And when you export, it'll save it as a PDF. So choose where you want to save it to. So you might set yourself up with a folder. Call it like, let's call it Sage Reports. And as I'm running through that, I'll maybe just save all the copies into that one. Give it a file name. I'll just accept that default, but again, you might want to rename it. Other than that, I've got a copy of that now. It means I can easily access copies of those reports should I need them. So if I do misplace any printed copies, I can get at that very easily. Now, as far as that last bullet point on the slide that we looked at a few moments ago, it was to check your data and backup. You should be doing it regularly. If you want, start doing it now. I don't mean right this second, but do it at the end of today. So file, and I can take that backup. And when you go to take your backup, you should be prompted, amongst other things, once you complete this window, do you want to check your data? Now, normally when you take your backup, probably on a daily basis, it's going to be data files only. But again, give it a file name, whatever you want to call it. I'll just accept those defaults. And you're then prompted, would you like to check your data before you back up? Now, yeah, that can take a little while. Depends how much data you have, sort of your environment. Do you run on a network? Do you not? But just click yes to that prompt. Let it run through. You'll probably get a progress bar. However, mine, with it being a local set of data, just on my laptop, it's very quick. So I don't even see the progress bar in this instance. I'll just okay that. Now, if you had errors, warnings, or comments, have a look at them, see what they are. What do you need to do about them? So if you had errors, you would just click the relevant tab down the side. It will give you a list of what those errors are, and via the help option, you can see what that error, warning, or comment, what it means and what you need to do about that. So I just close out of the check. It then takes that backup. Again, really, really quick in mine. It's a tiny set of data I'm using today. So it tells me it's been successful. I okay that, and that's how easy it is to check your data and to back up. So if you aren't already doing that, try and get in the habit. Right, let's quickly pop back to the slides. So that's really, as far as preparation is concerned, it's all about completing your processing. And when you're done, you're then going to get on to running your year-end reports and things before you actually run the year-end itself. So we're going to go back to the slides. We're going to next look at the actual running of the year-end itself. So the point when you think, right, today's the day, I've put it off long enough. So some of you will have waited 6 months plus. You think, right, put it off long enough. Today's the day. I'm going to go in. I'm going to run my year end. It's going to be nice and quick for me. Everything's going to go according to plan. So we're going to run through it now, show you what that looks like. So to access it, we've got tools, period end, year end. Your colleagues, if you've got colleagues that work on Sage, they will need to be closed out of the software while you do this. But when you access the year end option, it brings up a window similar to what we've got on the slide there. So a few buttons, a few tick boxes, a couple of date options. I'll explain those as we run through it. Well, as you go through, your options are going to include the option to create an archive. That will be done automatically. I would always recommend that you leave that ticked and it creates one. You have an option to set budgets for your new financial year. It's going to post journals for you to clear essentially your profit and loss year-end balances, and it'll advance the financial year for you. It'll do that automatically. And also, you have an option to choose whether you want to set a lock date and what you want that date to be. I'll come on to them in a bit more detail in a few minutes' time. But for now, we'll go back to my desktop and we'll quickly run through that process so you can see what that looks like. So we're going to go into tools, down to period end, and then we've got the year end option. And again, I must stress, normally at this stage, I always get asked about, well, what about my month end or my VAT return or my bank reconciliation? You'll have probably done all of those by the time you come to run your year end, particularly if they all relate to your previous financial year. So we'd expect you've done all of that by the time you come to actually run the year end. You'll have probably done other bank reconciliations and VAT returns in what will be your new financial year. So anyway, we're going to go to Tools Period End, Year End. It'll bring up that window that you saw on the slides just a moment ago. Split into 3 sections. So prepare for year end options, and the summary box at the bottom. Now, prepare for year end, you've got 4 options here. We start with check data. Now, if you've just done check data and you've done nothing else since, and then you think, right, I'm going to go into year end, then that's fine. You don't necessarily need to do it again. But if you, last time you backed up, if you've done anything since then and you've come into year end, give it a quick click. So give it a quick click. Again, it's really quick on mine. I appreciate for some of you, that might take 5-10 minutes, possibly a little bit longer, depending on how much data you have. If you've got hundreds of thousands of transactions you're running across a network, it might just take a little bit longer. Just click, let it run. So again, it's telling me no problems. Again, we're checking the data before we even get to year end because we don't want any surprises. We don't think, oh, right, I'm going to run the year end today. We go in there and it throws out some sort of issue that we're not aware of and it stops you in your tracks. You don't want that. We're just wanting a quick check, right? We're aware of any warnings or comments. Errors, really, you need to resolve those before you think about running year end if you do ever come across them. But other than that, mine's absolutely fine. Check your chart of accounts for any omissions. Again, if you've taken my advice, you check your chart of accounts already before you get this far. But give that one a quick click. Again, you click it. Now, this doesn't do a full check as it would do if you were within nominal codes, chart of accounts, and checking it that way. All this does is it checks for any missing nominal codes. Your standard check would check for other potential queries as well. So it's telling me all nominal codes are represented in your chart of accounts, so we okay that. Take a backup. So the reason this is here is just the amount of people I've come over the years when I've worked on support that have said, right, should I back up before I go into year end, and just forgot about that task. So it's there just to remind you. Again, if you've taken that backup just prior to coming into the year end process, you don't need to do it again. It'll be exactly the same. But otherwise, give it a click. It'll launch the backup window. It'll let you go through that backup process. And then the 4th option in this area is it relates to the company archive. Now, this will be ticked by default. This option has been around for, let me think, probably about version 9, I think this was introduced, around about version 9, version 10. We're up to version 33 now, so it's been around for a long time, this option. Initially, when it was first released, it wasn't ticked. You had to tick it, and a lot of people would forget that. They would just ignore it. So it's ticked automatically. Leave it ticked. It'll create a new archive for you. You've got this archive location, which again, I would just say, just leave as is. You can change the description if you want, but everything else, just leave as is. I'll come back to archives a little bit later on, explain what they are, how you can access them, what you can do with them. But for now, just leave that ticked. You don't need to do anything else. So this prepare for year end, when you come into the year end screen, nice and simple. A few buttons to click on. We then come onto the year end options, which are really just as simple. Firstly, you've got your budget options. Now, if you don't use budgets in Sage 50 and you've got no intention of using budgets, then you don't need to start now. You don't need to tick the box. If you do use budgets, when I tick the box, it gives me this window. And it's basically what it's asking me for is, right, your budgets for what will be your new financial year, what do you want them to be? Do you want to base your budgets around your actual figures, so things like your actual sales figures, your actual purchases figures, your overheads values? Do you want them to be, that'll be the budgets for next year? Do you want to just, any budgets you've got intact, just leave them in place? Do you want to increase either the actuals or the budgets by a certain percentage? Not very well used, this option. It will apply that percentage increase across the board to all of your budget values. So you can always change your budget values afterwards if you want. And if you've never used budgets before, but you think, actually I might, then you can always start at any time as well. You can amend your budgets at any time. But the other option you've got, if you use one of the advanced budgeting methods, is that you've got the option to use your forecast year. And if you are using the advanced method, it would make sense to use your forecast year. That's what you've entered it for. So that's for your nominal and department budgets. You've got a similar option for stock budgets. So if anyone sets that, you can either use your actuals or budgets. You don't have a forecast year for stock budgets. But other than that, you would choose your options, click OK. That's it. Second option, it says the date to appear on your year-end journals, last day of the current year. So in my case, my financial year on this set of data is January 24 to December 24. So it picks up the correct date for me. You don't need to change that. It potentially would let you. You would click the calendar and you could change it if you wanted to, but it will default to the right date. So just leave it. You don't need to do anything with that. Now, this date here, that where it says the date to appear on your year-end journals, when you run the year-end, so when I click run year-end in a few minutes time, what the software will do, it will look at my, essentially the year-end balances against my profit and loss nominal codes, and it will post a series of journals to zero those balances down as at the year-end date. And it will use this date in that box, which is the year-end date for that financial year. It will use that to post those year-end journals. So just leave it as is. You don't need to change that one. Moving on to the final option, it's what we refer to as the lock date. So it says there, prevent new transactions from being entered before this date, usually the first day of what will be your new financial year. Now the lock date in Sage 50 accounts, really simple feature. And the idea behind it is you can control who can and can't post transactions prior to a specified date. So if you finished off a period, you'd probably want this to be switched on and enter the appropriate date. Now, you don't have to set it here. It can be set if anyone runs a month-end option, but it can also just be switched on and off or the date adjusted within the settings menu. So settings, lock date settings. So 3 areas where you can actually set and change the lock date. Now, if I tick that box, you'll see it does then default to the first day of what would be my new financial year. And the idea behind that date is that if someone tries to backdate a transaction prior to, essentially what will be prior to the start of my new financial year, they try to backdate into a previous financial year, it'll either give you an error or a warning, just to remind you. Now, if you get an error, it'll just say you entered a date prior to the lock date, you can't do this, and you just get given an OK option. If you get the warning, because of your higher sort of access levels within the software, it will say along the lines of you're trying to post prior to a lock date. Are you sure you want to do this? And it'll give you the yes or no option. So you could override that message, but it all depends on your access levels within the software. Again, we've got a separate webinar booked in, which will explain the lock dates in a lot more detail and how it works. But it's quite a simple option, that one. So far, we've clicked a few buttons. We've set our budget options. We've talked about the date for the year-end journals, but we haven't changed it. And in this case, I have ticked the checkbox and it's picked up a date. I can change that date to something else if I wanted to. And then I've got a summary at the bottom telling me what's about to happen when we click run year end. So it's just a summary based on what will happen when you run a year end and based around some of the tick boxes that we've selected. So I'm ready to run year end at that point. So I just click run year end. It tells me, so you get a message, and obviously yours will relate to whatever your financial year is. So in my case, I'm about to run year end for January 24 to December 24. Do you want to continue? I'll click yes. It prompts me with the year-end report, which I'll just preview so you can see that. See the information it brings up in a second. And then it basically tells me the year-end process for the financial year ending at the end of my case, December 2024. It's been completed, and it tells me what that new financial year is. What we used to find historically before this message popped up is people think, oh, that's gone through really quick. What I'll do, I'll just quickly run it again just to make sure. And every time you run year end, it will advance your financial year by 12 months. So we don't want you running that. So hence you've got that message to confirm what your new financial year will be. So you just okay that message. Now this is the year-end report that gets generated. So those journals that get posted to your profit and loss nominal codes as per the year-end date, whatever your year-end balances were, it will post these journals and it generates a report with them on there. It just posts extra transactions to the end of your transactions list, what you term your ledger year-end journals. So at year-end, I'll just zoom in so you can see it a little bit clearer. So as at the end of December 2024, which is the year end on this set of data that I was running, it's saying, right, for nominal 4,000, what I must have had a ledger year end balance of just over £179,500, and you would expect that to be a credit balance on your accounts. So it's looked at that, saying, right, you've got a credit balance of this. So to zero that, or to sort of remove that down, as it were, as part of the year-end balance, it posts a journal. So post a journal to that nominal code with your year-end date for the same balance. And it means as at that year end, you've got the original balance that was there, and you've got this journal to cancel it out essentially. So you might want to print that. You might want to, again, you might want to export it. Other than that, we can then just close out. But that's my year end run at that point. It's a simple task. Leslie, you mentioned there about your floating categories and your chart of accounts. If you've got time, if you hang around at the end, I'll pick that up. Obviously, we've got that webinar coming up in the next few weeks as well, which will explain more about that in a lot more detail. But I'll try and pick that up at the end when we pick up some questions, if you don't mind. Right, so that's the year-end run on my Sage accounts. Now, there are some, obviously, your tasks, your post-year-end checks. How can you make sure it's been run successfully? Well, it's already told you that that message has appeared within your accounts. But once you've run year-end, there are a few optional tasks that you might want to think about. Now, the key word here is optional. Don't feel like you have to do these. You don't. So things like clearing your audit trail. Now, your audit trail, basically, if you've not come across that term before, it's basically your list of transactions. So when you go into the transactions ledger and it lists all your invoices and receipts and payments and journals, that's your audit trail, your transactions list. So what you might look at is think, well, actually, I've got 8 years worth of transactions on there. I don't need that many. I don't need to refer that far back. So actually you might think, well, actually I'll clear the audit trail. I'll get rid of all the transactions up to a date that you specify. It doesn't do that automatically. A lot of people think the year end will get rid of all their information. It doesn't. So if you are thinking about removing information, you would maybe look at clearing your audit trail. Now, again, we've got some webinars coming up on this. We've got recordings available as well if you don't want to wait for the live sessions coming up. But we've got some live sessions booked in for this. Similar for getting rid of old customers and suppliers, nominal codes and bank records. So these customers that maybe went bust years and years ago that you no longer need listed in your accounts, get rid of them. You can clear stock, maybe delete product records. Again, maybe all product lines, all services that you no longer provide. You might have records set up for them. You can get rid of them. So having just basically a general clear out of your accounts. Similar for invoices, orders, quotations as well, getting rid of it. And if you do any of those tasks, what you would normally do afterwards is you would compress your data. But as I say, we've got some webinars coming up on these tasks if you are interested. Laura's going to be taking you through the majority of those sessions. So if you are interested, get yourself signed up or watch the recordings that we've already got. You'll find out more about those tasks and what to think about. But again, that keyword at the top there is optional. And you can do those tasks at any time. Normally, if you're going to clear the likes of your audit trail to remove all the transactions, you would do it after running your year end. But again, you could do that at any time. The one I want to quickly mention is I want to touch on company archives. Now, again, we've got some live webinars coming up on this, just so we can go to it in a bit more detail. But a company archive, what is a company archive? It mentions that in the year-end wizard, that little tick box that I said, leave it ticked. So the fourth option when we went into the year-end window. A company archive is just basically an exact copy of your data as it stands at that time. So it'll be all your historic information, your current information, if you've got future information, it's an exact copy. A bit like if you back it up, it backs up everything. But an archive, what that does, it takes a copy of it and it's readily available to you. So it's what we term an archive company. It's a bit like switching from your live company into a copy of it as at the point when that archive was created. Some people really struggle to get their heads around what an archive is, but bear with me. So it takes a copy of all of your data at that point in time. So literally everything, creates that archive company, which you can access at any time. Now it is read only. There's certain information you can remove, and that's for GDPR purposes. So if you need to remove people's names and things like that, you can do that still. But generally, that archive company is there for reference purposes and reporting purposes. So let me quickly show you the archive that was created for me as part of that year-end process. I'll just quickly access this. So this is my live data. So where we've just run that year end, it tells me the financial year starts January 2025. I'm just going to pop into customers as an example. So in this one, I will just bring up a blank record. And I'm just going to call it, I'll do AAA. And if I click down, I'll just do new customer. My initials on the end as well. Looks like my caps lock's on there. I'll just switch that back off. Anyway, I'll save that record. So that's a new record that I literally just entered. I could enter transactions as well, so carry on as normal. Now, if for whatever reason I need to go back and look at the archive, I will go to File, Open, and then we've got an option called Company Archive. Now, I mentioned this one ages ago. The archives have been around a long time. If your company's usage for that long, so 20 years-ish, then you might have loads of archives when you open this window. I've just got the one. So you might have loads. So this is the one that was created at the point when I ran that year end about 5 minutes ago or so. If I highlight it and click open, just wait for my laptop to wake up there, pop in my password. Now the password is whatever the password was at the time of when that archive was created. So it includes your usernames and passwords in that archive. So similar to a backup, if you went to an old backup, it's included in that backup, would be whatever your username and password was at the time. So anyway, I'll log into that one. And it takes me into the archive. Now, initially, it doesn't look really much different, but it tells me at the top, I'm in an archive company. It tells me on that toolbar at the top. It tells me at the bottom that the financial year on this set of data is January 2024. So the financial year on this set of data is January 24 to December 24. It's what I started with at the beginning of the webinar before I ran that year end. So it's copied all of the data, the settings, everything. It's copied that into this archive company. I can go back, I can look at the customers that I had at the time. You'll notice that AAA customer isn't there. it wasn't in the archive when the archive was created. That would go for transactions, invoices, products, you name it, whatever was in at the time or whatever wasn't in at the time, that's the state of play. But it means I can access that list of customers, I can run reports, I could go back, nominal codes, I could say, right, well, actually, I've lost my trial balance. I didn't take a copy of them at the time, but I'll generate one of those for that financial year. It's based around whatever the data was at that point in time when your archive was created. So I can just OK that, and I can generate my reports, etc. When I've finished with the archive, I can either just close out of Sage completely. When I come back in, I'll go to my live company. Or if I want to return to my live company at this stage, it's File, Open Company Data. Just prompt me to log back into that one. Get rid of that Copilot message. And then that's me back into my live company. So it no longer mentions at the top there that I'm in an archive. I'm in my live company now. You can see that the financial year starts January 2025. And if I go back to customers, I can see that customer that I added a few moments ago before I switched to the archive. So that's essentially what a company archive is. Again, if you want to find out in a bit more detail what you can and can't do with archives and accessing them, etc., join Laura. I think that's Monday when we've got our company archive webinar. So join Laura and she'll tell you in a lot more detail. She'll run you through it. Right, now I'm going to come back to questions in just a couple of minutes. Apologies for the slide overrun. But if you've got any questions, if you think of any, quickly pop them in there. I'm going to start picking up on the questions that I've got there in just a moment. I've only got two. I've got one from Leslie and one from Ellen that I'm going to try and pick up as well. So good opportunity to get yours answered if you want to pop them in there now. So pop your questions in there. Remember, you just need to click the little speech bubble icon. It's on your toolbar. Give it a click, and then you can start typing in that box in the bottom there. Remember to click send. Right, just to quickly mention, a link will be included on the follow-up email as well to our webinar page. So you can access the live registration page and the recordings, both for Sage 50 accounts, Sage 50 Payroll, and also the Business Cloud editions of those as well. So watch out for that one. I've included some information about the Community Hub. I'm not going to go into that one today, but basically our Community Hub is like an online forum. It's divided into the various products that we have. So if you need help and advice, or you want to offer help and advice, do take a look at that. It's free to join, free to take part. And for 50 accounts is over just shy of 9,000 accounts professionals connected and supported each other last year. So have a look at that if you get a chance. So that link's included on your handout. The other thing we're doing at the moment as well, and again, this is included on the handout, we're just running a learning survey. So this is actually nothing to do with Sage software, this one. It's to do with what do you want to learn about? So those non-product related learning. So is it AI? Is it something else? Is it some maybe non-accounts legislation? Let us know. So there's that little survey. It's got 2 questions on. Let us know, choose the options that you would like to have learning on. And also the second question is, right, what format would you like that learning to be in? Is it live webinars? Is it short videos? Is it e-learns that you can complete online? Let us know. If you can take part in that survey, that'd be really appreciated. So just 2 simple questions, that one. Right, brings us to the end of the session. I'm going to come back to those questions in a moment. So many thanks for attending, though, for those of you that if you're like Newcastle today, where it's absolutely raining today, bucketing down. So hopefully you're not looking out, staring out that window thinking, well, I'm going to get a walk in or something. You'll get soaked if it's like Newcastle today. So if you are about to disappear, enjoy your weekend. Hopefully we'll see you on some of the sessions next week, if not week after. There'll be a little survey pop up as you do leave, if you can take a minute to complete that. It's about 6 or 7 short questions. Opportunity to score the webinar, whether you think you'll benefit, you've benefited from the webinar, that type of thing. Opportunity to pop any thoughts and ideas in, topics you'd like to see covered, ideas or thoughts on how we can improve the webinars, that type of thing. Let us know. If you can complete that, that's all we ask. The follow-up email will be with you in round about an hour's time. I am going to come back to those questions now. So I'll share my screen just in case I need that. But if you are about to leave, many thanks, and hopefully I'll see you again. But let's get back to my screen. I'll quickly run through some of those questions that I've had. So a quick one from Ellen there. Once the year end has been run, can you post accountants' journals into the previous year? Yes, it would still allow you to do that. No problem with that at all. You'll get a warning saying that you've backdated it. And if you did switch the lock date option on, if you're trying to backdate something, you'll get that warning as well, saying you're trying to post part of the lock date. Are you sure you wish to do this? Yes or no? The problem with accountants' adjustments, though, it depends what those adjustments are for. And there's a number of different scenarios for that. So I'm not just going to say, right, yeah, you just backdate them and that's it, because it might not be. There may be other processes to go through. So those adjustments, do you want them to reflect in your current financial year, or do you just want to backdate them? Are they balance sheet items only adjustments, or do they affect profit and loss items? What you won't be able to do is regenerate your year-end reports. That's something that you won't be able to do. So please bear that one in mind. Again, the longer you put that off and all your processing's done before you run the year end, the better. Hominder, you mentioned about the chart of accounts, which links in quite nicely with Leslie's query from earlier as well. So I'll pick those two up together. So we went into nominal codes, chart of accounts. Now you won't see check at this stage. You will need to highlight one of your chart of accounts. You may have one or more different structures for different levels of detail for your management reports. You will need to click edit. And then it's on this screen that comes up when you edit it. That's where you're going to have the check option. Now, Leslie mentioned about a floating category. Again, we'll go into this in a lot more detail in specifically the chart of accounts webinar. But your floating categories exist within your current assets and your current liabilities. And it refers to this section here. Basically, what you've got in the current assets section in this bottom box, it should be reflected in the current liabilities. Now, so what you've got, Leslie, if you're getting that message about it's in the floating category, but only as part of one of them, it means your floating categories don't match. So you just need to adjust them accordingly. So go into one, see what the descriptions are, what the ranges are, and then you want to replicate that in the other one. You want them to be the same. Otherwise, potentially, it would mean that your balance sheet might not balance when you run your reports. But again, if you want more detail, get yourself signed up for that one, Leslie. There is a recording if you don't want to hang around for that one. Or if you pop into your help option at the top, you'll be able to search for those errors and how you go about correcting those. Hope that makes sense. Siobhan, you mentioned there, thanks for today on a different topic, is the training sessions on setting up your own budgets. We're just about finished that series. So we have actually been running budgets over the last 3 weeks. So if you are interested, I think there's one session left, which will be next week on the advanced budgeting options. Recordings are available though, if you've missed that. So it's split into two. Part one looks at standard budgeting, which is available on all levels of the software. Part two, we've got a session for next week, but we've run it once already. It covers the advanced budgeting methods. So we've sort of run them. You just sort of missed part one, but there's still an opportunity to still attend part two if you are interested. Again, check out the registrations page or the recordings page if you're still after part one. Caroline, you mentioned there, do you need to run a year end? Is it a legal requirement? Well, at some point, yeah, obviously you would have to submit your accounts, etc., to Companies House, but there's nothing that's going to force you to run a year-end in Sage itself. The main limitation of Sage, so let me just try and demonstrate this one to you, is this one. I'm in the January 2025 to December 2025 financial year. So let's say I'm at the position where I need to start generating reports for 2026. Now, this is where the limitations come in a little bit. We've got dedicated webinars on these. So again, watch out for that one. But if I go to the profit and loss as an example, and I just preview it, when we go to say, right, we want a profit and loss for 2026, this drop down is based around your current financial year. Now, yes, I can run it for the future, so beyond that financial year, but I can't specify a specific period. So I can only really run that for 2025. So that's one of the, I suppose, the limitations why a little bit of pressure to maybe run a year end on your software so that you can then start getting a full array of management reports for what will be your new financial year. But we are going to look at ways around that on our upcoming webinars. And if I just show you the one that you would need to register to find out more about that. So this is the live registration page. Let me see if I can find the right one. I think this will be February now. So we'll see if I can find it. So there's a chart of accounts webinar, 10th of Feb and the 18th of Feb, deleting records, company archives, you've got a few of those. Let's see where it is. So we've got the standard management report session, where we look at the trial balance, the profit and loss and the balance sheet, but shortly after that one, so trying to keep them in order. See if I can find the right one. This one. So 24th of Feb, a little while to wait. So you've got about a month to wait for that one, and also the 4th of March. So this one will look at your management reports. So how can you generate those reports either for a previous financial year, what options have you got, or running it beyond the end of your financial year, what you term a future financial year. So we will be covering that in detail. We'll explain all the options and again, take you through a series of demonstrations. So get yourself signed up if you haven't. Again, they're all free to attend. Right, questions just about drying up there. So I'll just bring up my final slide one more time. Apologies if I missed your question. I'll have a look through afterwards and see if there's anything I've missed and get back to you otherwise. But again, many thanks for attending. We're going to end the webinar just at that point. Apologies for the slight overrun. It's just those questions. Do take a look at that registration page and get yourself registered for any sessions that you are interested in. If you can't find something, it's not on the live sessions or it's not on the recordings page, get in touch. Reply to any of your webinar emails. It'll come either direct to myself or it will come to our team's mailbox and we'll take it from that point. Quick question from Caroline there. When is the best time to do a year end? Whenever you're ready. So once you think you've done all your processing, you know, you think, right, everything's finalized, probably only you will know that. So for some people, as we had on that survey at the very beginning, some like to run it within a sort of a month of the year end date, some 1 to 2 months. There was quite a few went for 2 to 3 months or 2 to 6 months or whatever it was. And then quite a few of you went for 6 months plus as well. So there's no best time. The best time is for you is when you think you're ready. So I can't give you any other advice on that, I'm afraid. If you mean the time of the day, probably when no one else is using Sage. The pressure's off a little bit, just to let you run through and you're not going to get it, you're not going to get interrupted. Nice quiet place. Right, okay, we'll end the webinar just at that on that note. Again, if you can take a minute just to complete that survey, it'll pop up in just a second, and hopefully I'll see you again very, very soon. Many thanks.